I'm Neil. I have been mentoring a few school teams, and what we've been doing is using laptops to connect to the Raspberry Pis, using Wi-Fi and SSH, which kind of works, but I feel that there's generally a more robust solution than that. So as everyone else has been using little screens on their robots, so you can actually, you don't need to worry about a laptop and Wi-Fi and all the things that could go wrong on your PiWars competition day. So I wanted to stick a screen onto your robot. So this is by no means the definitive guide to screens and robots. It's just what I've been tinkering with over the past sort of few months or so. I'm sure there's much better solutions out there than what I'm going to propose today. But like I say, it's just what I've been playing around with. There were a few constraints that I had. One was cost. So this being a school, sort of a club, robotics club that I do, we don't have a huge budget for this. So I couldn't sort of go to the official Pi screen and that sort of stuff. So I was looking more at your sort of AliExpress, eBay sort of thing. So yeah, so cost, size was another constraint. I was looking at this sort of robot chassis, so pretty small. So what I was kind of going to do was give the kids a working sort of robot chassis, and then get them to add all the build all the extras, all the add-on bits to complete the challenges. And this is it starts like a chassis that I got, added some bits to it. So as you can see, it's fairly small. Of course, you can build on top of that, but that was the sort of the starting point of it. The other thing I wanted, of course, was it to be easy to use, because if I wanted the kids to do as much of it as possible, I wanted it to be a fairly quick solution for them. So I'm going to look at 4 different screens. So all of these, I'd say that cost, all of them come up at about, well, less than 20 quid. So fairly cheap. So I'll quickly run through them, and then afterwards I'll go through in a bit more detail. So first up, we got the, this is the SSD 1306, sort of pretty standard little tiny I2C screen, as used on things like the Adafruit little Pi OLED screen. So, and then I put one on this little board I made. It's got on my red board. So same screen, but all the screens work the same way. So obviously a very small screen, but no input devices on that as it is. So next up, we're going to look at a slightly bigger screen. So this, I think, is a 3.5 inch HDMI screen. You're probably quite familiar with this sort of thing. I quickly dismissed this though. There's a few things about this that I didn't quite like. HDMI. So I mean that's good, because it means you get full control over your Raspberry Pi. So you've got this little double HDMI connector, which just pops in there. And you've got, it's a nice little system. And it's got a touchscreen as well, so you've got full interaction on your Raspberry Pi. But one of the problems that we're going to have with this is the GPIO ports. So this, plugs into your GPIO ports here, and you can see it's got power down this end, and then this is going to be a SPI, which I think is for the touchscreen interface. But the problem with that is that with your motor control board, you generally need, I'll get that one in shot down there. The GPIO ports are used for other things. Now, this is not just about the red board. This would be for a lot of motor control boards that are out there, unless, and other people have mentioned this already, with some of the big screens that use lots of GPIO ports. But you can use I2C on some of these. So it can and it can't be a problem depending on what motor drive board you're using. But for me, on that one, I needed access to the GPIO port. So straight away, this was proving somewhat problematic. So, I mean, there's other options for it though. Well, actually, let's before I go into more detail, I was going to quickly run through the other ones just so we know where we are. So onto this slightly smaller screen, just quickly go through these. This is interesting because it had a Raspberry Pi on the back. It didn't come with a Raspberry Pi on there, Raspberry Pi Zero, which is soldered onto the back, and it makes what a little tiny computer itself, which I thought was very interesting. And there's a lot of potential for that. So yeah, I got a hold of those. And then lastly, another very interesting screen here. This is called a HMI screen, human machine interface. And what I like about this is that you can see it's only got 4 wires. So yes, that's pretty good. So yeah, I'll come back to that one last. So that's just so you can see what we've got lined up. Right, so back onto this one. As I was saying, issues here with the GPIO port. So what you can do, of course, is get a, you don't have to mount it straight on top of the Pi. You can cable, plug it in there, plug the other end into here. But now, because I'm not plugged into the GPIO port, it needs power as well. So then you've got to get a. I'm not going to power this screen up because it's a nice screen and it's got quite a nice display, but you know, I think I'm just going to go through the sort of the setup of it. So anyway, USB for power into here. So already the problem I'm having is there's lots of these wires. This HDMI cable is pretty bulky. You know, it's not particularly flexible. You know, the plugs here are huge. If I lift this over to my little test chassis, you know, I can already see that I'm going to have trouble kind of getting this on there, you know, mounted in a kind of a nice way. So, as I say, I quickly sort of dismissed this. Well, it may be useful if you've got a bigger robot. Then you know there's no problem really if you can fit these kind of connectors in. It won't be an issue. But for me, it didn't really do exactly what I wanted to do. Although I did realise that with the Pi 4, which has got its 2 micro HDMI ports, then you can get these little cables, which are far more flexible and possibly more useful. So that you can plug into there, plug it into the screen. So you need to power it via USB, but I suppose you could actually some jumper cables from here onto the Pi header, so you can get power from there as well. You could also get the SPI connections from there, so that could be mounted elsewhere. I guess you could put a little right angle connector on here, and so yeah, you've got a bit of a more useful system, I reckon. But again, I think it's more for the bigger robots, not so much for the ones that I was looking at. So yeah, so I started back onto AliExpress to see what else I could find and see what other options we've got. So I'll just park that one back over there. So this next screen seemed, as I said, seemed very interesting. So this came, well, didn't come with the Raspberry Pi, but came with a little header here, so you can solder a Raspberry Pi onto it. So I've put a Raspberry Pi Zero on here, and of course, what that does is it turns this into a completely functioning little computer. So what that means is I can have this mounted on my robot, and the screen is obviously great. It's I guess about a 3-inch screen on this one. This would fit very nicely onto my robot here. So I've got this kind of this space here I was eyeing up for a screen. So size is looking pretty good. What I was hoping I could do with this was use the serial port that's on the GPIO pins. So on pins, I think it's 14 and 15 here, you've got the Pi's serial port. And it's useful, the combination of pins here. So you've got your 5 volts, you've got your ground, and you've got your TX and your RX. So it's a useful little 4 pins on here. And I imagine that a lot of robots are not using the serial port for much, as most communication can be going through I2C, I'm assuming. So I was thinking, yeah, this is a pretty good solution here. So what I thought, yeah, I did a quick experiment. I hooked up the serial port here. I'm just going to use this other little Pi set up here on the breadboard. hooking up the serial port from here to the serial port on this Pi, which is the simulating one that's in the robot. Fired up a serial communications terminal on here to see if I could connect with this. Now this, it didn't work. And I didn't play with it much more than that. I plugged it in, didn't really get much joy out of it, and stopped pursuing that task because this really was a proof of concept. So I didn't want to spend ages and ages just trying to get that serial port working to find that the whole system wasn't really going to go anywhere anyway. So I thought the easier option is just to plug in a USB serial dongle. Or adapter, whatever you call it. So there's one of these. You're probably quite familiar with this sort of thing. Quite often used in programming Arduinos and that sort of stuff. So you've probably got one lying around. So yeah, I thought I'd use that, and that did work. So I'm going to switch this on, and I'm going to see if I can actually get this up and running. So just bear with me a second. We are going to. Oh, actually, before I go too far with that, I just wanted to show you. Going back to, I completely forgot about it, back to this screen. Did I completely forget this screen? Maybe I did. Yeah, I think I did. No, I didn't talk about this one at all. Okay, what do? Do I? Yeah, before I power this one up, I'll quickly go through this one. It's obviously a bit daft, but let's see. So I'm only going to talk about this one quickly because again, it's one I didn't really pursue too much. So yeah, what's great about this is it's tiny, really, really small. So this can fit on a small robot, no problem at all. I2C interface, but the only issue being that it doesn't have any input methods built into this as it is. So I, on my little board here, added a I2C connector. And the point of that was that you can add a one of these little keyboards. So this was originally from M5 Stack, and it came with an Arduino library. So over I2C, you can just, whatever you type on here, you can see on your Arduino. So it didn't take much to port the Arduino code over to Python, make a Python library to use with this. So this board here plugs onto your Pi header or your breadboard or whatever you're using. You can then plug this into here. So now you do have a usable interface. And I did start developing some code for this. And this is what reminded me of it, because up on my screen here to queue up next, I've got a little video I made a while back, but it just shows how I use this to scan for Wi-Fi networks, and then you can type in your password and connect to the Wi-Fi. And then the idea was from that to add a menu system and yeah, other stuff to control and interact with your robot. So I'm just going to get that video going here. So here you can see it. There we go. Oh yeah, that works. That's nice. Oh, is that backwards? Ah, doesn't matter. There you can see, yeah, typing stuff in. So it does work as an interface for it, and I like the fact it's got a small screen. But what you would have to do is either mount this keyboard on the robot, which isn't ideal, or of course you just have a plug, which you can start your stuff, unplug it, and then off you go. So yeah, there is. Well, just on my screen, it would appear to be the wrong way around, but doesn't matter. So anyhow, so there you go. That's just connected there in that little video. So that was a workable system, but I wanted something better than that little tiny screen, I think. I mean, if you've got a really, really small robot, that'd be pretty useful. I know some people have those tiny, tiny ones, could be useful for that, but then you still got the issue with the screen. So yeah, that's when I started looking elsewhere, and I started looking at the 3.5-inch screen, which I looked at first of all, and then so back to this Pi screen. So let's move all that back out of the way. Let me go back to there we go. Right, so we're back on to right. So a slight diversion there because I forgot what I was talking about. Right, back on the screen. I was about to power this up. Let's have a look. Yeah, so just bear with me a second as I get all this plugged in. So, here. So you see I'm using this little breadboard and Pi Zero. I often use this for prototyping. One of the things I like about it, I don't know if you can see, is that it's got all your pinouts labeled on here, which is pretty useful. So I do like that quite a lot. Also, I do fry quite a few Raspberry Pis by, when I'm messing around with power supplies and various motor drivers and blah, blah, blah. I do fry probably more pins than I'd like to admit. So I'd much rather fry a Pi Zero rather than a 8GB Pi 4. So that's why I tend to use this. And obviously the breadboarding area is pretty useful. The only annoying thing about it is you can't quite see the indicator light in there, but that is now up and running. So now I'm going to power this one up. So first of all, what I'm going to do is just as this was supposed to be a proof of concept, I'm just going to plug in a Pi keyboard into it so I can interact with it. So that's just going in there. What's really useful with the Pi keyboard is, of course, it's got its USB hub on there. So the serial port, which is on the end of this USB here, I'm going to plug that into the hub. Move that a bit closer. Like that. So that should be my USB serial adapter powered up. And now I'm going to power up the Raspberry Pi that's here. So that is this one. Just move this a little bit. Okay. Right, hopefully this is all going to work. Right, plug that in. Tidy some of this wiring. Aha, good. Right, so that, as you can see, is booting up. We'll just let that finish. Let me have a quick look over here, make sure we are connected. Let's see if we can connect. So this Pi is not connecting over here. Doesn't matter too much, I guess. Okay, let's not worry about that. At this moment, so on my, so we now booted up. You can see we've got our Pi logo, we've got our prompt. I can probably try zooming in on that a little bit. Is that better, or even a bit more? Let's have a look. There we go. That's not. I should have probably made the font a bit bigger on there, so you could read it. But I think it's enough for us to see what's going on. So what we can do is now start a serial connection from here. I probably want to zoom out a little bit again, so that you can see the other Pi that will be on my robot. So I'm going to start. Just tip this up a little bit. Hopefully this is going to work. Right, so I've started this serial terminal. For some reason enter a few times. Right, so I don't know if you can see that, but it says Raspberry Pi login. So I'm now going to log in. Okay, good. So that has actually worked. Let me just zoom in on that again. So if you can see there, I've got my Raspberry Pi prompt, but this is the prompt that's on the Pi on my robot. Now, when I started this, I kind of thought this was a pretty daft idea. But then as I started doing it, it actually worked. I thought, actually, no, it's not that daft. It's possibly quite a usable system. Because now I've got full control over the Pi over here, and it's just done through this USB connection. I mean, I've got the hub and the keyboard, but that wouldn't be there in the real robot. This is just for a, say my proof of concept. So just to sort of see what's going on here, I can run some programs. I did a little test program. There it is. So that should just print something to the screen. I mean, you can just about see it on there. There's some text coming up. Again, I can also just quit that program. So that's good. So remember, this is everything I'm doing now is actually on the Pi that's here on my robot. All the Pi here is doing on the screen is just running the serial terminal. So I have now got full access to everything. I can run Raspberry config if you want to connect to Wi-Fi, all that sort of stuff. I can start my programs. So I'm pretty good. I'm thinking, yeah, this is a pretty good solution. But the issue with this, of course, is I've got my full keyboard here. And having a full keyboard on my little robot is not really the solution that I was looking for. So what do you do about that? So I thought, as I'm doing this, the only keys I'm really using on the keyboard are up and down to scroll through the programs. As you can see that they're just about sort of changing there as I'm pressing up and down. Enter to run that program. Then once the program is running, Control and C to quit the program. So I think that's 4 buttons. So as long as I've typed in the command previously in the terminal, because it stores all the things you've previously typed in, I can then run anything that I want to. So I think, yeah, so 4 buttons is generally all I need. So a quick look around in my parts bin, and I knew I had one back in my mind. I knew I had something like this, floating around, a little tiny 4-button keypad. So I thought, brilliant, this is exactly what I need. With an Arduino sort of Leonardo that's got the built-in USB. So I thought, great, this is a really good solution. But then possibly rather than a full size, Leonardo is obviously too big, but then you've got the Pro Mini or whatever the smaller version is of that. But then of course you've also got the Trinket MO. So this is a tiny little board, built-in USB, enough GPIO for what I need. So and size-wise, I'm thinking that this is perfect. So that would go on there. That can then sit next to my screen, and I've got a great little system for controlling my robot. So I thought, right, let's prototype this. Let's get this all up and running properly. So I had one of these Leonardos floating around, and I thought, what's the chance that the buttons here are going to plug straight onto the header of there? I thought, that would be a perfect solution, an easy way of me prototyping this. I did think about using one of the smaller ones, but because the header's on this, I thought, there's a good chance it's just going to work. So looking at the pinout on here, I just need a ground and then 4 input pins. So luckily, that can just go straight into there. So I can prototype this pretty quickly. And what's great about the Arduino system, of course, is that it comes with so many example programs that you can get something up and running very quickly. So I just open up the Arduino IDE, had a look under there, the USB options on there for example programs, and they had one for a keyboard, USB keyboard device. So well, great, I'll start there and started playing around, programmed it so that I had those buttons doing what I wanted to do. And of course, you can program it so that one button can do multiple key presses and the like. So you can do key combinations. So you can program one button to do that Control C, which you'll need to exit the program. So let me plug this in as well, and we'll see if this works. Now, hopefully, the Pi 0 is not going to reset. Sometimes it does when you plug things into its USB port, but let's have a look and see. So I think we're okay. Well, you can still see that. So with any luck, now with these buttons, I can. So as you can see, as I'm pressing that, I can see. Let me zoom in again on there. So just at the bottom of the screen, just down here is my prompt. Looking at the wrong screen. So just down here, and then as I press the buttons, I can get that in the screen as well. So you can just about see that changing. So I can scroll through programs that I previously entered. So I'm just going to find my test program. That one there, and then I can do my enter key. And then there you go. So my program is now running. So I can run programs. I can stop programs, or hopefully I can do Control C. And then I can log into my serial terminal and do all the things I want to do. I realized at this point that 4 buttons wasn't actually enough, because if I shut this Pi down, I can do that. Let me so. But yeah, so what I realized is I can shut the Pi down on the robot, but to shut the Pi down for the screen, I need to exit the terminal. And so the command for exiting the terminal is Control D. So then I realized I needed another button. So in the end, what I did is I made the bottom, let me zoom out back into the other one. So I made the bottom key on here a function key. So when I press that, it changes the function of these other keys. So what I'll do is I'll shut that Pi down. So I'll exit the program here, which was, so I changed Control C to function and then the bottom one. So that should stop that program running. So you can see it's just stopped there. That's good. And then I can find my sudo halt command. So there it is. So this is going to shut down the Pi that's on my robot. So I'll press enter on there. So you can see that should be saying, hopefully shutting down. There it goes, system halted. So that part on the robot is now safely shutting down. That's good. And then, so here I need to exit the terminal. So Control D I did as function and that second button down. So when I press that, I should come out, and you can see it, if you saw that there, the prompt, and it's quite a good visual indicator, the prompt has changed to green, which is pretty useful because it's a good, quick way of seeing which one you're actually logged into, which could become confused. But also the name, the host name there is Pi Screen, which makes it easier to know where you are. So the other button I needed, of course, was at this point, because I don't have the full keyboard plugged in, was to log in to the remote Pi. So when I start the serial terminal on the Pi here, it's going to ask me for the login credentials of the Pi on my robot. So I needed a way of entering a username and a password. So I did the function and the top button. I'm not going to do it here, but that then sends the username, which in this case was just Pi, then the enter key, then the password, and then the enter key again, which would actually launch the terminal session on the remote computer. So I could then shut down this Pi as well, because I'm now back in the terminal for this Pi. So again, I can just find my sudo halt command, which is there, do my enter command, and then this Pi is also going to shut down, hopefully. There it goes. So amazingly, that all actually worked, which is pretty good, I reckon. So yeah, pretty chuffed with all of that. And then what's good about that is, of course, if you're in a situation there where you do need to change something, you don't have the functionality on those 4 buttons, is you can then just plug in your USB keyboard, and then you've got the full range. You've got the whole serial terminal at your fingertips. So you're good to go. What I thought, I started experimenting with these kind of like micro USB hubs. So rather than having because obviously the hub I'm using here is built into the Pi keyboard. But what I can, if I use a smaller hub like this, and I'm thinking I could, crack the case off, reduce this. When I say crack the case off, that's actually just come apart in my hands very easily indeed. So, as soon as you start doing that, the size of this is actually pretty tiny. That itself could be mounted on the back. It's actually got this little prototyping area on there, which I'm not sure I'd sort of really use much. But looking at that would actually fit on there quite nicely. Yeah, so that actually I think is turned out to be a pretty good solution. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I was quite pleased with that. That turned out, I think, far better really than what I was expecting. I mean, if I could get it to work with the Pi's built-in serial port on its GPIO pins, then yeah, that would be ideal. And I've got a pretty good solution. So the only thing with this, I guess, is the sort of, there is some complexity. You've got to log in. The students might get confused about which one they're controlling and things like that. But I think a little bit of hopefully a bit of practice with that. Yeah, might well do the business on that. So yeah, pretty happy with that all around, I think. So yeah, so I'm going to move on now to just before I go. GitHub when it's done and it's all a bit more polished off. So if people are interested, of course, that'll all just be up on GitHub. What was good about this solution was it took hardly to rig up. So I was pretty happy. I mean that's pretty good. I don't know, like half a day of fiddling with the Arduino and stuff, and so that worked. Quickly. So if that was in a better sort of form factor, I think we're looking pretty good. So I'm just going to shut all this down, unplug everything, and then we're going to look at the other screen. I've already turned off those pies, so we're pretty good there. Just unplug all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, you can see, as I say, and that's that screen on there, and then the keypad mounted somewhere. I got quite excited about this this project when I was doing it, so that was pretty neat. Right, let's get rid of this. Now, I was fully expecting all of that not really to work, so that's all good. Okay, so some of these cables I might need in a minute. So I'll pop it over there. Okay. Right, so on to this last screen that I was going to look at. Yeah, so I came across this. I was browsing AliExpress, and I'd seen these around, these HMI, human device interface, human machine interface, of course. And I was pretty curious about it, but what I liked about it was the 4 wires. So pretty easy to connect to your Raspberry Pi, just a serial port, which I said, earlier on, I imagine that most of the robots are not using the actual UART serial port, they're using I2C. And on my board, I am using I2C, and the serial port is free. So actually move that little thing there, put that over there. So I'm gonna there's a more basic version which would actually be absolutely fine for all of this. This has got a real-time clock. You can see it's got a space for a battery backup there. This one's also got a GPIO port itself, and they do a little keypad, like a directional keypad, which you can plug into this if you actually want as well. This comes with its own editor, so there's a whole editor for this the screen. So it's drag and drop. So the issue with this screen is that it doesn't actually display the actual HDMI output from the Pi. So it's only going to show on here what you've pre-programmed it to show. So I'll boot this up in a minute, and you can see I've tried to create a sort of app kind of looking interface, so it's sort of somewhat familiar. But if it's not pre-programmed, you can't then do it on your Pi. So if, for instance, you realize that you're on the day at PiWars, you need to change a couple of values of something or other, you can't do it through this screen. So that would really be its only drawback. Right, I'm going to plug this in and hopefully get it all right. So luckily the pins on here are marked. So I'm going to do ground. I'm pretty sure that blue was RX on there. So I'm going to plug it on. And then lastly, I'm going to plug the power on. And then just before I actually switch that all on, I'm just going to double check, because this is a type of situation when you're going to start frying stuff. Okay, so I think I'm pretty good. Right, I'm going to power up the Pi there. Let's just turn this on. So you'll notice that straight away the screen here has come on, because it's got a microcontroller which is, boots instantly, and so straight away it is running the program on here. And I don't know if you can see that. I mean, it says it's booting on here, and it's waiting for a command from the Raspberry Pi and say that it's booted. But as I've been testing this, I haven't got it so it launches automatically. So what I'm going to do is hopefully come over to my computer here, and I'm going to hopefully log into this one now. Let's have a look. Okay, that's good. We are there. And then over here. Okay, let's try this. So, well, I think that's worked. So again, this is backwards for me. I'm hoping that is the right way around for you, but shouldn't really affect anything, I hope. Let's move these down here so you can see them. Okay, so I am just right, I'm going to start the program for this. So, this is it's a Nextgen display. Nextgen, I guess the manufacturer of this. So I just wrote a program called Nextgen.py. I'm going to run that. So by running that, you can see that it's this now realizes it's connected, and it's showing me my app interface on here. So normally, you'd have this, so it runs automatically at boot, but I chose, in this situation now, because I'm testing it and stuff, to have me start it automatically. But also, I could then show you some of the output from the program as it's running, which is probably quite useful. So again, some of the features that I wanted from some of these screens is to be able to start and stop Python programs. Obviously, the useful thing for PiWars. Have some settings. So I've got a settings button there. Be able to turn off the Pi or reboot the Pi. Plus some other things I put on here. So you probably can't see it, but in the top corner here, it's showing the IP address. And then because it's connected to the breadboard and it's got some ADCs built into it, it can show the battery voltage on here as well. Although that's not working at the moment, I just hadn't got around to programming it in. But I put the battery meter there, but it's just not it's not taking the readings. I also wanted to put a screen on here which shows, because there's another 3 ADCs on the breadboard, and I thought I could have a button on there to show like little dials of all those values, which would be possibly quite useful. So you can connect to Wi-Fi on this as well, which I thought is another useful thing, because you can just pop this on. It makes setting up the Pi a bit easier than with a full screen and keyboard. So I'm not going to go through the whole process of that, but if I click on there, you can see it will scan for networks. In a second, that should refresh. So you can see it's found a number of networks. So if I wanted to, I could click on one of those. It would ask me to enter a password. But I will click on one, but I just won't go to the next stage. So it's asking me for a password. If I clicked on that, it would then show a little keyboard on here, which all comes as part of the package, the design package for this screen, which I like because it means there's no programming of that sort of stuff. All you have to do is do the drag and drop, position your stuff. The keyboard, it just works. So pretty happy with that whole situation. So I'm just going to exit out of that. So if I was trying to connect to the network at that point, you'd see a little bar come up and it would showcasing. So there's odd stuff going on the screen. There it's showing that I did select a network, but then I came out, it says it's found 9 or 10 networks. So and for that I just reused most of the code like I did for my little OLED screen. You probably can't see it there. and I have a little keyboard, which was pretty. So the development of that bit of it was pretty swift, and that's a great thing with a lot of these Python libraries and stuff. You just port it over and it works again for you. So the next bit, of course, is here we go. Right, Python programs. I've done a couple of test Python programs on here. All they do is print stuff to the screen. So this is a pre-created list. So you'd have to set this up first of all. It's just a list in Python. So you just type all your Python program names into that, which have got to be in the sort of the home directory, whatever it is. So let's run one of these programs. To run it, all I have to do is click on it here. And it says, you probably can't see it, it says at the bottom, running PiWars.py. And then hopefully on the screen, you can see that it's just printing up, okay, PiWars Conference 2021. So again, you probably can't see it, it's a bit too small. Maybe it's easier if I lift it up a little bit. It says back, stop, and more down the bottom. So if there's more than the 6 programs on there, you get on the next page. And obviously, I can stop the program running by clicking on stop here. So that's all good. That's working a treat. But then I thought, what if I want to start and stop or start 2 programs at the same time? You know, it's one of the great things you can do, a bit of multitasking on the Raspberry Pi. And what often I do quite often is to start a program which is running NeoPixels. They're running in a completely separate program. They're not going to interfere with my general robot program. So I wanted to be able to do that as well within this interface. So I can start one program here, and at the bottom it says now running that first program. You should see it on the screen, running PiWars Conference 2021. If I now click on the, I'll just wait for that to print one more and then click that. So now the other one's running as well. So I'm now running the 2 programs at the same time. You can see them there, take it in turns to print to the screen. Now, if I press stop on the screen here now, it will only stop the last program I specified it to run. So I needed something else to be able to stop these multiple programs from running. So I did think about this, and I just went over to more. And the last program I put in here just says kill all. So if I click on that, it should stop all those programs. So yeah, it seems to have done that. So I'm pretty happy with all of that. So, and I had actually a lot of fun developing this. Once I kind of, I've got the editor. It's Windows only. In fact, I'll just shut this down and we'll have a quick look at the editor. And then I'm probably running out of time. But yeah, so let's go shut that Pi down, because that's just the last thing that I wanted to make sure I can do with this. So I'm just going to go back on here over to my main page. Let's actually, yeah. So I've got a shutdown button. Click on that, and then I get a confirm shutdown, yes or no. I just need to add onto the screen or run the option to reboot as well. Just haven't put that in. It's pretty trivial once I've got the rest of this working. So yeah, confirm shutdown. Let's just do that, and then I get a little message on there. So and you can see on the screen there, my SSH terminal is already disconnected because my Pi is shut down. So this gives you 30 seconds or so, and the screen here shuts off as well. So my screen is has gone. So yeah, that screen, really liked it. Good price, good size. Kind of thought that's probably the one I'm going to go for, but the other ones have still got their uses for sure. Let me just show you. Let's get rid of that. And I'm going to go over to this. So this is just a screenshot of the Nextgen Editor, and you can see on there that we've got that, the same display that I had on my little screen down here. And then what you've got is a load of pages over on this side over here, and yeah, various editing options. It's all just drag and drop. The icons I just downloaded. I did a Google image search, found various icons, downloaded them. I think I put them into Inkscape and then resized them because they're all think they're 64 by 64 pixels, but you know they'll work really well. I mean, it would have been nice if some of those icons were built into the editor, but it's not too much work for doing that. So yeah, once you've got into that kind of workflow, it's pretty quick. All of the communication is all done by serial, and I think you can see at the bottom of the screen there, it just says print string Wi-Fi, and that is just telling it to print the Wi-Fi address, I believe, I remember. A month or so since I programmed that, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all it did. And that's kind of all it is. You just and then on the Pi side, you're just scanning the serial port for these various serial words. So pretty easy. I will be putting all of the code for this again on GitHub. I've written the whole Python library for this whole system. So you can do this, you know, straight off the bat if you get one of these screens. So yeah, I mean, yeah, a really good system here. I will, if people are interested in this, I can get some more of these screens and then preload it with all this software. But it's easy to do with the Nextgen Editor. If you can run Windows, I know lots of Pi people run Linux, but you know, yeah, I found it easy to use, and there's plenty of documentation, and it was quite a lot of fun actually doing that. So so yeah, so to wrap up, I guess of the 4 screens, or in fact, let me just show you, because I kind of like this one quite a lot. In the end, I did actually make a whole mount for my little robot here. So that would just sort of pop into there. Actually, I need to change my screen back now. Then I just let's go to that one. Yeah. So, what's good about this? It's a sort of a trivial thing, but actually, it's quite important. Is that this one has got mounting holes, whereas none of the others do. So you'd have to kind of come up with a clever solution of mounting some of those. So this one, yeah, 4 mounting holes. So it's actually pretty easy to put that into my case. So that pops on there. There's a little slot there for the cables. So there you go. Nice, neat little robot there with a screen. It's got a little cover for that bit. So there we are. Yeah, so that screen for tiny robots. That screen for massive robots, if you've got the space for the cabling. And I mean, I still want to investigate this one with a Raspberry Pi on the bottom. I want to put this into a robot and give it to the students and sort of see how they get on with it, because that's the biggest test really, is you give it to those students and see if it works at the end of the day. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so I hope that was interesting, somewhat possibly informative or useful for people adding screens to the Raspberry Pis. Like I say, it's not the definitive guide, it's just what I happen to be playing with. So there we go. So right, I think I'm finished, and I'll probably answer a few questions. So Rob, are you going to jump in at this point?
Yeah, happy to join you.
I've got, here we go.
Hi, thank you very much for that. That was very illuminating. A lot of things there that were new to me. And so I've been the one asking most of the questions. Let me just have a look through and see if anyone other than me has actually asked you some questions. I'm sure we had some. Brian Starkey mentions a nice user interface library called lvgl.io. I guess, have you seen that? Are you aware of other user interface libraries that you've tried to use, or have you been?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid I probably should have looked at some of those, because it may have saved me some work. But I guess I just saw these screens, and I just kind of tend to dive into these things, and want to get them working straight away. I don't know. It's probably easier to find someone else's library.
William Harvey had a couple of questions. He says, well, firstly, he says, I find the problem with small screens is that I can't see the text. I agree completely. Can we, like, on that, when that 0 you had connected to the terminal, can you increase the size of the text there? Is that possible?
You certainly can. You certainly can. Yeah. You just have to download another font for it, from what I remember, and then you can, yeah, change it. I mean, I already changed this. I think when this, I'm using the Adafruit library that comes with this, and that actually has 4 lines of text.
Yeah, I know the. So that's the I2C OLED, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's exactly the same as that one.
What about on the 0 when you're running that as the terminal? Because you're in like a text mode.
On this one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can certainly increase the text size on that as well. There's just some config files you have to modify for that. There's various guides online, and I should have done it for this. Yeah, as soon as I did it, and I got up on the screen, I was like, oh, I should have made that text bigger. Yeah, you certainly can do that. Yeah, that's not a problem at all.
Yeah, never mind on screen. I'd have trouble using that in PiWars at that size, I think. So he goes on to say he's got a Adafruit screen with the 4 buttons. I'm sure you've seen these sort of screens. And
yeah, I think
while you were talking about the that terminal, this is a little bit of a different system because the screen itself is just like a screen and buttons, isn't it? So how would you go about adapting that into a terminal solution?
So, yeah, well, I haven't looked too much at that one, but I think it did have an SPI interface.
Yeah, I think they are SPI. Or if they're not, then you can get them with the built-in SPI adapters. I've got both. The one with the built-in SPI or I2C adapter is much easier to use. So you can get it where it's got I2C coming out the back. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think when I first saw that, and I thought, oh, if it's only SPI, then that's going to take up too many of my GPIO pins, which I want to use for other things. So I wasn't too interested in that. But I haven't really looked at it. So, and like I say, I don't know. I mean, does that just show the Pi's screen, as in it's kind of, its serial output? Probably does. Yeah, I'm sure there is definitely a use for that screen.
Yeah, because that's what we really need, isn't it? Something that lets you show a serial terminal on an I2C screen. Yeah, like the serial terminal from the actual device.
Yeah. I'm
just thinking of ways to shave off extra microcontrollers and Pis from this. If we could do something all in one. Although I have to say, I really did those Nextgen screens. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, you probably saw. I feel like I was most excited about that screen, even though it didn't have the full functionality, because if they're then you can't do a certain thing. But I guess with testing, and you do a few run throughs, and you know what you need to add to it, then of course you can just add stuff to it. But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun with that one. So I mean, I bought some more. I thought it's a great little system, works well. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, Barry's saying, what was the name of the last display Neil used? Was it Nextgen? Yes, it was. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yes.
And what?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because they have a bunch of different types.
They do. So this was the enhanced one. Let me see. I think I've got some others here. I mean, I went for the smallest size of all of them. Then you can see that there. So Nextgen HMI solution. There's not much more on the box, to be honest. You can read that. Yeah, this is the smallest screen. I think the 3224 is a resolution, 320 by 240. And I think the 0.024 is 2.4 inches, I think, of screen size. So this was the more basic one.
What's the difference?
This one doesn't, if you look on the back, it doesn't have the real-time clock.
Yeah.
So you can see this one's got the battery here. So if you've got a machine that obviously needs to track the time when the power goes off, then that's the one you want to use. I think for these Pi robots, you can totally use the basic one, which is a bit cheaper. The enhanced one has also got this GPIO port built in. I think it's got 8 GPIO pins there, which can also do PWM and other stuff like that. So another keyboard and some other displays and LEDs and things if you wanted to. So I didn't really investigate that. And I thought, yeah, really, if you want the cheapest option, is just the basic screen, which would do you, absolutely fine. So I'll try. I'm not sure. I imagine the software that I did for this would run on the other one just as fine. I'll give that a go. So yeah, all good.
Very cool little screens. I think we're just about out of time, unfortunately. Yeah. We've got one more question in the chat that I will put to you, and I'll let you answer as you see fit. William says, not related to screens, but I wanted to ask Neil if there was anywhere I could find a schematic for the Red Robotics board. Really want to design my own similar one. Thanks in advance. You want to share your secret source?
Right, okay. I mean, it's supposed to be open source, I guess. The thing is, it's a lot of work open sourcing something. I'm going to have to go through my schematics and make them a bit less rubbish. So even though they're functional, I'm gonna have to tie them up and stuff like that. So
maybe
yes, yeah, it's something that I've sort of said I will do. So yeah, I will try and get onto that. So
you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.